Okay, using Mixamo with Blender Part 2. I've got two characters in here, and these motion capture data, the animations are from Mixamo. And a lot of times when I import the FBX, right away what I want to do is uh, make sure I can see the armature through the model. Okay, so this is pretty basic, but when you select the armature, suddenly you'll have access to this armature properties button. And inside viewport display, I can check in front to see the armature through the model. And then I can, if I need to make adjustments, I can select the bones in pose mode. Sometimes though, the bones are blocking your view and it's kind of a pain to have to like move all the way across your screen. And if you're not in the right menu, you got to go to the armature menu and uncheck in front. So I prefer to toggle the overlays button. And I like to do that by using Shift Alt Z. Okay, Shift Alt Z to toggle the overlays button. Way faster, it's right there. And you can quickly just like check out your animation. All right. Another thing I wanted to show here is I haven't fully organized my characters into their own collections. And I know I showed it in part one, but an alternative way is to just simply move things into a new collection. You don't have to right click and make a new collection right away. So let's say I've got my armature selected, I shift select my model, and I'll simply hit the letter M and move that into a new collection that hasn't even been created yet. Just quickly rename it right there and click OK. And there's the collections. Okay, real easy to now just like hide a character that I'm not working on. Okay, I'm going to uncheck in front for this demonstration here because I want to talk about painting weights. Look at the whiskers on this cat. That's not correct, but because Mixamo doesn't really focus on painting weights, it's like a general formula for just like assigning weights to the closest bone. The hand is pulling the whisker vertex points down. It's the model of the whiskers is being affected by the wrong bones. Okay, so this is how I fix it. I will, I'll just switch to this texture paint workspace because that way I don't have to mess up my layout workspace. And I'll switch, I'll select the model and I'll switch to weight paint. Okay, when you use weight paint, you really want to be using it in conjunction. There, let's get this out of the way. You want to be using weight paint in conjunction with the object data menu because the vertex groups is is how you're able to select the bone that's creating influence. Okay, so what bone is influencing the whiskers? Let's just start with this right hand. Okay, it's going to be the right shoulder, the right arm, the right hand is pulling the whisker down because Mixamo didn't really know that, they're just going by the geometry that's closest. Maybe they'll integrate some AI in the future and have it be more accurate. Okay, so I'm looking for vertex groups that are associated with the right arm. So just scroll down and okay, look, there we go, right shoulder. So when I select right shoulder, I can see that this part of the model is correctly being influenced. That is the right shoulder. So that's all good. But there's a little bit of influence on this whisker, okay? If I start painting, I'm going to paint more influence onto it. I don't want that. So how about I uh, switch my weight to 0? So it's like I'm trying to paint a weight influence, okay? And it I don't know if you guys could tell just now, but it darkened the color a little bit. I want to get it as close to blue as possible. Um, Blue is cold. It's like, hey, there's no influence. So let's move down to right arm. Oh, look at that. There's way more influence. You can even see a little bit of red, which means that it's hot. It means that there's influence from the right arm bone. Okay, so I'm going to paint that away, and it's going to start to freak out a little bit because influence gets like shifted around to different bones as I'm painting it away to 0. And sometimes I'll hit the letter F to like increase my brush size. Okay, and this can be very frustrating. I highly recommend using a tablet to paint weights because your mouse hand is going to get really tired. Okay, so it's as blue as I can get it right now, I think. So I'll just switch to right forearm and start painting. And sometimes it's just really tough. Like you just got to keep clicking and wiggling around until you get it. Right hand. Okay, moved a little bit. Still looks pretty bad. Okay, I'm gonna go back up the chain. Okay, finally did something. Okay, crazy that I went backwards though. Did not want that. Okay, that's a little bit unpredictable and I'm not really sure what happened there. Okay, well, it's better than being hanging out in front. Uh, let's work on the left side, left shoulder. Okay, left arm. Boom, that's the culprit. That's the main culprit. Okay, left forearm. Okay, same thing happened. Okay, so maybe it's being controlled by something around the head. Okay, so let's jump over to neck. And if my brush size was too big, I'd be in danger of like accidentally painting an area that's away from the whisker. There we go. Okay, so I want the head. I want this to get back to normal. Okay. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good demo. What are we going to talk about next? Okay, editing the animation. Um, I actually like this animation a lot already, but the character is going to like dive into the ground. Okay, so let's first show in front. And how do I adjust it so that this character doesn't dive into the ground? Like the diving animation looks great. I'm going to switch to pose mode and select the hip joint, which this is like the main joint. If I hit G, you can see that just by moving this one bone, it controls the whole character. And then I'm going to switch over to the animation workspace. And it's going to be really helpful to use a graph editor. Let me close the end panel here. Okay, let's make sure that nothing's really being obstructed. Okay, so I'm going to use an orthographic view, and I don't want penetration into the ground. Okay, I'm editing the animation right now. Let's see, maybe I can just hide this notepad. Okay, just so you guys can remember that I'm editing animation. Okay, and my face is covering the graph editor, so how about I just move this over here? You don't even need to see my face right now. Okay, let's focus on the graph editor here. I've got the hip selected and there's all the attributes. Everything looks great up until frame 20, let's say 24, okay? Frame 24. You can use your middle mouse button to move around the graph editor, but if you hold down Control with your left pinky, you can also click and drag and disproportionately zoom into your graph editor, which I like to do quite often. All right, what I'm looking at is left side orthographic, and I care most about this z-axis. I care most about the blue axis because that's the height off the ground, and my complaint is that the character is going too deep. So I'm going to hide everything else except the z location. Okay, and I can even click on the word z location to highlight it. And sometimes it's kind of hard to find your graph, but if you just use tilde, you can frame selected. Bam, and now I can clearly see this curve, okay? So what I want is for the character to not continue to, I want all these keyframes after from 24 on to kind of get flattened out or not move. Let's just see what happens if I move forward in time a little bit and then I just hit GY and like adjust. Okay, so it looks like because the character is rotated, the z-axis is actually not the axis that I want. Okay, great. By the way, when you're moving points, when you're moving keyframes in the graph editor, generally you only want to move up or down because if you start moving left or right, you're going to change the timing of your animation that was already like very clean. Okay, so let's check out the y-axis. And if I remember correctly, that was 24 and up. Okay, so now I'm going to hit, let's move my timeline. I'm using the right arrow key to move into frames where I don't like the animation after I've already selected the keyframes that I want to adjust, and I hit GY. Okay, perfect. Okay, looks good. And I'm going to just move them little by little here. Okay, so GY, I want this up here. Okay, I want a little bit of adjustment, and there's actually a lot of ways to go about fixing this, but I'm gonna kind of do it a cheap, fast way. And the technique here is to just hit S and then Y, and that kind of flattens everything out. Um, and this is just going to be my first pass. I would, I just want to make some slight adjustments, and then I'll come back and I'll mess with it more later. Okay, so boom. Okay, and then there's like some rotation going on. Okay, of course this this curve is too straight, but then we got rotation going on. So how about I try to identify, I'm just going to take a guess that it's the x-axis. Okay, tilde, frame selected. And let's see how this looks if I hit S and then Y. Yeah, nice. Okay, so I just have to make some slight adjustments to that rotation there, and I want it to actually keep rotating, maybe the opposite direction. Yeah, so yeah, nothing wrong with just jumping in there. Okay, so it looks like just rotating the X rotation is not going to do it. And I may have to adjust a bunch of different curves, but I just wanted to give an introduction into the graph editor here and how you can just start making adjustments. Okay, so just don't, I don't want to make this video too long, but um, in part 3, I'm actually going to show the process of going from Blender to Mixamo back to Blender. Okay, thanks for watching.